As of February 26, 2025, a fragile truce persists between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip. This follows a recent outbreak of violence, a recurring theme in the troubled region. The initial phase of the truce, brokered by Egypt, has brought a pause to the rocket fire and airstrikes. However, the situation remains precarious, as both sides struggle to find common ground for a lasting peace agreement. The path forward is fraught with challenges, and the specter of renewed conflict hangs heavy in the air. The current ceasefire represents a temporary reprieve for the beleaguered residents of Gaza. They have endured years of conflict and hardship under a crippling blockade. The international community watches with bated breath, hoping this truce might mark the beginning of a more durable peace. The coming days and weeks will be crucial in determining whether this fragile opportunity for peace can be seized. The underlying tensions and distrust that have fueled decades of conflict remain. Both sides harbor deep-seated grievances, and the potential for the situation to unravel quickly is very real. The world is watching and hoping for a breakthrough, but only time will tell if this truce can pave the way for a more peaceful future. The initial phase of the truce agreement, hammered out in intense negotiations, included a prisoner exchange. This exchange saw Hamas release a number of Israeli hostages. In return, Israel agreed to free a contingent of Palestinian prisoners. The specifics of this exchange, including the exact number and identities of those involved, remain closely guarded by both sides. Beyond the prisoner exchange, the truce called for a halt to rocket fire from Gaza into Israel. This provision aimed to bring an immediate end to the barrage of projectiles that had terrorized Israeli civilians. Simultaneously, Israel committed to easing its long-standing blockade of the Gaza Strip. This easing would allow for the entry of essential goods and humanitarian aid, offering a lifeline to the struggling population. The agreement also included provisions for the transfer of Qatari funds into Gaza. These funds, intended to alleviate the dire economic situation, would provide crucial support for essential services and infrastructure projects. While these initial steps offered a glimmer of hope, they represented just the first tentative steps on a long and uncertain road towards a lasting peace. Despite the progress made in securing the initial truce, significant obstacles stand in the way of a long-term peace agreement. Chief among these is the issue of remaining Israeli hostages believed to be held by Hamas. The group's insistence on their release represents a major sticking point in the negotiations. Hamas has linked the hostages' fate to the release of additional Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails. They demand the freedom of long-term detainees, including those involved in attacks against Israeli targets. This demand has proven to be a major stumbling block, as Israel is reluctant to meet these terms. The Israeli government faces intense domestic pressure to secure the return of their citizens. Public opinion leans heavily towards viewing any concessions to Hamas as a sign of weakness. This makes it politically difficult for Israeli leaders to make compromises regarding the prisoners. Section 4. The stakes are high. A humanitarian crisis looms. The failure to achieve a lasting peace agreement carries with it the very real risk of renewed violence. Such an outcome would have devastating consequences for both Israelis and Palestinians, but particularly for the beleaguered population of Gaza. The overcrowded and impoverished coastal enclave is already grappling with a dire humanitarian crisis, exacerbated by years of conflict and the ongoing blockade. According to the United Nations, over 2.1 million people are crammed into the Gaza Strip, making it one of the most densely populated places on Earth. The unemployment rate hovers above 50%, and over 60% of the population lives below the poverty line. The healthcare system is on the brink of collapse, and access to clean water and sanitation is severely limited. The ongoing blockade has crippled Gaza's economy, stifled development, and deepened the humanitarian crisis. Basic necessities are in short supply, and the population is increasingly reliant on external aid. A return to conflict would only exacerbate these already dire conditions, pushing Gaza further into despair. Section 5. A history marred by violence, a future uncertain. The current truce is the latest chapter in the long conflict between Israel and Hamas. Locked in a bitter struggle for decades, periodic violence has claimed thousands of lives. Hamas came to power in Gaza in 2007 after winning a Palestinian legislative election. Israel and Egypt imposed a blockade citing security concerns. 4 major wars have left a trail of death and destruction. Despite attempts, a lasting peace agreement remains elusive. Deep-seated mistrust and conflicting ideologies hinder a negotiated settlement. The current truce offers a fragile glimmer of hope. The international community must push for a diplomatic solution. Failure to do so will condemn both sides to more violence and suffering.